What if fear says more about the human mind than the thing people are afraid of? Well, with that being asked, welcome back to the Coachman. And for today's reading, that's going to dive into a little something different. I'm going to be a little strange, funny, nervous. We're actually going to be heading over to England and we're going to be reading a different story. And it's called The Bogey-Beast by Flora Annie Steel. And it's going to, like I said, it's going to examine the word fear. So, with that being said, let's get into it. There was once a woman who was very cheerful, though she had little to make her so, for she was old and poor and lonely. She lived in a tiny cottage and earned a meager living by running errands for her neighbors, getting a bite to eat here, a sip of soup there, as reward for her services. So she managed to get by, and always looked as lively and cheery as if she hadn't a care in the world. Now, one summer evening, as she was trotting along, full of smiles as ever, on the road home to her little house, what should she see but a big black pot lying in the ditch? So, with that being said, I'm just going to say this, yeah? Listening to this woman, um, I've never really have been, I've traveled to developing countries here and there, right? And I gotta say, I like this woman sounds like I know she's from quote unquote England. That's probably where the story was written. But I have heard of this where you have people that are poor, don't have the most money, and for some reason, they're content with life. And it takes a lot. Excuse me, in my opinion, it does. But the one thing I will say is that it's interesting because I've met a good amount of older folks that for some reason life is just it's gravy. You know what I mean? It's just gravy. And I commend them for it. It's a hard. I mean, I guess just because they live their lives, they're in their ways. They know, hey, I'm good. But yeah. But this is interesting. So let's see what this lady is about to get into. Goodness me, she cried. That would be just the very thing for me if I only had something to put in it. But I haven't. Now, who could have left it in a ditch? As she looked about, her expecting the owner would not be far off, but she could see nobody. Maybe there is a hole in it, she went on, and that's why it has been thrown away. But it would be fine to put a flower in for my window, so I'll just take it home with me. Now, when somebody takes something off the ground in a lot of these stories, it don't end well. It never does. I don't know what it is. When somebody finds something, it's never on the up and up. It's just always like it would. It's kind of weird because you know how, like sometimes like you'll find money and shit on the floor. Most of the time, if you find the money, you know the person's gone. You know what I mean? Or like a wallet, especially like here or whatever. Most times you find stuff and it's like, oh, it's gone. But for some reason, in this day, you found something. It's either like A, go find the owner, or B, take that shit back. Or C, leave it alone and just walk off. One of the two. It's always that way in these stories. And with that, she lifted the. Wait, hold on. Sorry. Gotta go back. Went too far. Okay. Okay. I was right. And with that, she lifted the lid and looked inside. Mercy me, she cried, quite amazed. If it isn't full of gold pieces, here's luck. See what I'm saying? Ain't nobody dropping that. Yo, that would be like somebody dropping like a wad, like a $10,000 wad on the floor. That don't happen. That don't happen. That shit just doesn't happen. This old woman should have been wise enough to know that shit. You know what I mean? No offense. This wasn't a black lady. At any point, telling you, black grandma, you know what I mean, auntie and shit is not touching. Like, look, she's looking around and being like, yo, she's yelling for everybody under the sun to come get this. And so it was, brimful of great gold coins. Well, at first she simply stood stock still, wondering if she was standing on her head or her heels. Then she began saying, my word, but I do feel rich. I feel wonderfully rich. After she had said this many times, she began to wonder how she was to get her treasure home. It was too heavy for her to carry, and she could see no better way than to tie the end of her shawl to it and drag it behind her like a cart. It will soon be dark, she said to herself as she trotted along. So much the better. The neighbor will not see what I'm bringing home, and I shall have all the night to myself and be able to think what I'll do. Perhaps I'll buy a grand house and just sit by the fire with a cup of tea and do not work at all like a queen. Or maybe I'll bury it at the bottom of the garden and just keep it a bit in the old china teapot on the mantelpiece. Or maybe, goody, I feel that grand I don't know myself. By this time, she was a bit tired of dragging such a heavy weight, and stopping to rest a while, turned to look at her treasure. And oi, it wasn't a pot of gold at all. It was nothing but a lump of silver. See what I'm saying? See what I mean? The minute she saw it go from gold to silver, that's where you dump that bag of shit and keep moving. See, and that's the worst part, is that we're talking about old woman, wisdom, you know what I'm saying? Just keep that in mind. Just remember that. She stared at it and rubbed her eyes and stared at it again. Don't stare, woman. Turn around and keep it stepping. Well, I never, she said at last. And me thinking it was a pot of gold. I must have been dreaming. But this is luck. Silver is far less trouble, easier to look after, and not so easily stolen. Those gold pieces would have been the death of me. And with this great lump of silver... So, she went off again, planning what she would do, and feeling as rich, until, becoming a bit tired again, she stopped to rest and gave a look around to see if her treasure was safe. And she saw nothing but a great lump of iron. Well, I never, says she again. And am I mistaking it for silver? I must have been dreaming, but this is luck. It's really convenient. I can get pennies for old iron, and pennies are much handier for me than your gold and silver. Why, I should never have slept a wink for fear of being robbed. But a penny comes in useful, and I shall sell the iron for a good sum and be really rich, rolling rich. Well, I mean, I gotta give it to her. She's rolling with the punches. I'll tell you that. But let's just hope that she isn't rolling with punches and gets rolled up by a sack of nickels. So we'll see. So on she trotted, full of plans as to how she would spend her pennies. Till one more, she stopped to rest and looked round to see her treasure was safe. And this time she saw nothing but a big stone. Well, I never, she cried, full of smiles. And to think I mistook it for iron. I must have been dreaming. But here's luck indeed, and me wanting a stone so terribly to prop open the gate. Oh my, but it's a change for the better. It's a fine thing to have good luck. So, in all the hurry to see how the stone would keep the gate open, she trotted off down the hill till she came to her own cottage. She unlatched the gate and then turned to unfasten her shawl from the stone which lay on the path behind her. Yes, it was a stone, sure enough. There was plenty of light to see it lying there, quiet and peaceful as a stone should. So she bent over to it, unfastened the shawl, and when, oh my! All of a sudden, it gave a jump, a squeal, and in one moment was as big as a haystack. Then it let down four great lanky legs and threw out two long ears, sprouted a great long tail, and romped off, kicking and squealing and whining and laughing like a naughty, mischievous boy. The old woman stared after it till it was completely out of sight. Then she burst out laughing too. Well, she chuckled, I am in luck. Quite the luckiest person around. Fancy my seeing the Bogey-Beast all to myself, and being so friendly with it. My goodness, I do feel that grand, that wonderful. So she went into her cottage and spent the evening cuckling over her good luck. So it's kind of funny because I'm not gonna lie. As I was kind of like reading my notes, like notes about the story, and and a couple of other things, like it's it's a it's different. So, and I think here's the problem. Here's how do I want to put it? Okay, that's what it is. So remember what, like, if you look at what I was trying to say, and I think the story is trying to say, look at like what how I was perceiving everything, and notice how every time that I like it would change or something would happen. What did I say? Like, yo, you leave it alone. But that was based on what I know of these stories. But the funny part about, and that's what I'm saying about fear, like the more you keep reading about it, and it's just like, yo, lady, like cut bait and get out of there. This pot is it's not good. You know what I mean? And like maybe some people would have read that and been like, yo, it goes from gold to silver to iron. It gets less and less valuable. And like I said, like people might think, oh, I got to do something with this before it disappears. So like a lot of like this story, I think um I would say the most important point is to look at, if anybody wanted to look at it, look at my commentary based on what I was reading, but then look at how she consistently just kind of found a way to see the good in what she had. Even to the fact, like, even when she saw the Bogey-Beast and it ran off, you know what I mean? And they both had a laugh. Like, she looked at it as like almost like each step was just a part. It like, it was more about the journey than the destination. And so I think, um, I, and I think like what I would say is that sometimes like the thing exhausting us most, it isn't reality. It's our imagination running ahead of the truth. And I mean, let's be realistic. What was the truth about that story? I told you, hey, most of the time when you see these stories and you see this, what do you do? And even finding money today, you instantly start looking around like, yo, Whose is it? Am I going to get in trouble? Yada, yada, yada. But notice how this lady took that, like, found this pot. Then it was gold. And the whole time, she never lost her way of, like, the fear never crept in. But notice how, for me, it did. And I would say that most people reading this story, we would. It's called the Bogey-Beast. We always allow our minds to think the worst. So I gotta commend this story, and I think it's like, yeah, you just have to kind of look at it and say, hey, sometimes, and you know what? I'll leave you with this. Somebody once told me, fear's in your head, but danger is real. And I think that that's what that lady did. She didn't see the danger in this pot. So there was no fear. And so I would just talk to anybody, like, just if we wanted to put it into real life terms, the easiest thing I can think of is, I remember, like, maybe like 5, 10, 15, 20, like 10, it was a while ago when everybody was like, oh, these immigrants are going to steal our jobs. These immigrants are going to steal our jobs. And here I am. I'm talking to a guy who was like a CPA or something like that. And there was a lady that had like a CPA, and then another gentleman who had like a master's degree, like an MBA. And I'm sitting there, and to hear these people talk about how all these immigrants are going to take their jobs. And now looking back, I'm like, well, no, a lot of the immigrants, whether legal or illegal, that I see, a lot of them take manual labor jobs. They start off like at the bottom. And the funny part is that you offered that dude, like that guy with the MBA or this woman with the CPA, do you want to go out in the field and, pick strawberries or fruit or vegetables? Do you want to do, like, to the gentleman with the MBA, do you want to go and do manual labor on a construction site? Most of them be like, no. And it's like, it's okay. So do you see how, like, the fear of, like, oh my God, I got to blame somebody and all that. And it's just like, it's not the reality. Not the reality at all. So that's a great story. I'm glad we came across that one. And, it's definitely up there. Like, I'm definitely going to have this, up there with, The Disciple. Not there. You guys know Aesop is my favorite, but it's pretty close. So, with that being said, I hope you return and come back. And for the next story, we're going to be answering a really great question: is what if the loneliest places in the world are the ones filled with human voices? All right, think about that one. But until next time, hope you are all well and good. And until then, take care.